Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the three most mortifying or potentially mortifying experiences I had as a concert goer. And these are not mortifying things I saw happening to other people. These are things that involved me directly, one way or another. And, and then there are the mortifying things that happened to me as a performer, as a percussionist. Like I've talked about them, the time I finished Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony bare-chested because all of my studs popped out and I was crashing my cymbals and I had no idea until I looked down and realized I had no shirt on. That was a different thing. Now I'm talking about times I went to concerts with somebody and something happened with me or with the somebody. So here are the top three in order of mortification. And if you have some mortifying experiences you want to share, oh my, would I love to hear them. Now, when I was in college, I went to concerts and, being a classical music obnoxious rebel type somewhat, the idea was to go to a concert wearing, bathing suits or shorts, or not to dress, or to be, to generally have attitude, right? And I used to go see the Baltimore Symphony. I was in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins University in the old Lyric Theater. This was before they built Meyerhoff Hall, which was rather different in terms of what you could do with it. And the Lyric had a balcony. And, there were always a bunch of seats all the way on the left with like a railing that were really good seats to hear from. But they were all the way on the left of the balcony in sort of a separate little section. And so I used to grab those two seats because no one ever sat in there. It was never really full. And sit there for the concert with my feet up over the railing. I would just lean back, stick my feet up, hanging out over the balcony and listen to the concert. Usually I would wear, sometimes I take my shoes off and just have my little socks there or sandals or whatever. And I did that for an entire season. Anyway, there was a lovely, lovely man in the viola section who I used to ride down to the concerts with. He was Italian. He was Italian. I'll never forget, they were doing Bruckner's Sixth Symphony with James DePriest conducting. And he was sitting there and I said, "So, you're looking forward to playing this?" And oh my God, a wonderful Italian man. He couldn't stand Bruckner. Oh, he said, "It's so boring. It's awful. It's horrible. We all hate it. It sucks." It was really kind of fun. But I'm sitting there and we would chat, before concerts regularly because we'd always get on the bus at the same time. And he said to me, "It's very funny." He said, "But we're all sitting there and when we're playing something that's, particularly uninteresting or we have nothing to do, we look up and there's always this guy with these feet sticking up in the air in the balcony. And we always are looking, they're all nudging each other." He said, "We're always looking to see if those feet are sticking up there in the balcony. We wonder, who is that?" And I just looked at him and said, "I have no idea. I can't imagine anybody would be so crude." He said, "Well, it gives us something to do, something to look at, when we are sort of curious." So that was potentially mortifying, I suppose. I mean, it wasn't so terrible, I guess, but the next one really was. I was at a New York Philharmonic concert with a friend of mine, very, very dear friend of mine, Bill, who was a musical genius, by the way, and Bill and I were watching. We had gone to see the Bernstein-Mahler Seventh, but there was another concert that was before. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but we're sitting there, and in front of us was one of those grande dame, geriatric old lady concert goers with immovable hair. She had, not a lot of it, but it was coiffed up in this, pile that was, see, I'm out of the screen here. It was like a foot high, dyed hair, sprayed so that an earthquake wouldn't move it. A building could fall on her and nothing would happen. That hair was stiff. It wasn't going anywhere. So we're watching this concert and it was extremely dull. It really was. And Bill had brought with him a box of jujubes. Do you remember jujubes? Those little tiny hard candies. They came in different colors. They all tasted the same. They were like hard as rocks and you could suck on them forever and nothing much would ever happen to them. They just got sort of sticky. So he had this box of jujubes and I was trying to listen to the concert. I really was. And he was manipulating his jujubes because he was bored out of his mind. And it was annoying me. It was annoying some of the people around us too. So I told him, put those down. You put down your jujubes. And he was like tipping it and I knocked it and he flipped it and a jujube went flying up into this woman's hair. And it just stuck there. I mean, it was in the hair. And she didn't even notice. She didn't notice. Of course, she wouldn't notice. I mean, you could have put a crowbar in her hair and she wouldn't have noticed. So I looked at him and he looked at me, and we both just lost it. I mean, totally lost it. We started laughing. And of course, we were covering our mouths and trying desperately not to make noise as we were tittering along and laughing. And the people around us were like, to the extent they noticed, were like horrified. And he just looked at me and he took another jujube and he tossed it into her hair just to see what would happen. And nothing happened. She didn't notice. So then he took another jujube and he amused himself by turning her hair into what eventually looked like a Christmas tree with little ornaments hanging off of it. There were several jujubes up there, and I was just, I wanted to die. I absolutely wanted to die. And he was beyond caring at that point. And the people around us were like appalled, but no one would say anything. No one wanted to say anything. And so he just kept tossing jujubes up there and until the concert was over. And I finally, got him to stop. I said to him, listen, you don't want to keep doing this, I whispered to him, until she finally does notice, when half the box is hanging out in her hairdo. So he stopped and it ended, and she got up and she left, and she had no idea that she was carrying a substantial number of jujubes decorating her hair. That was really, really obnoxious. I mean, it was really offensively obnoxious and kind of appalling. But thinking back on it, at the time it was just hilariously funny. But now, oh my God. I mean, it embarrasses me to even think about it. And all I could say is, thank God that wasn't me, because I could be very, very obnoxious in those days. But I wasn't the one with the jujubes. So it wasn't my fault. I just had to sit there and endure it and sort of have people know that I knew this guy, who was a very, very serious musician, actually, and not somebody to do that kind of thing. I'm not sure what came over him. I mean, he hadn't had anything to drink or anything like that. He just was a fateful encounter of hairdo and jujubes. And so you just have to be careful, when these things come into, they encounter one another. Anyway, but I think the most mortifying single moment that I had at a concert was with my dad, who was really, really trying to be a good sport. It was the Yale Symphony, the Yale Philharmonia, whatever they called it, the Philharmonic of Yale, under Otto Werner Müller, whose son I went to high school with, actually. He was sort of a pop music musician, I think. But Otto Werner Müller was a very good old German school type conductor of the Klemperer style, Kapellmeisterisch, and they were doing Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony, and I was dying to see it because I love the work. And I couldn't get anyone to go with me. Quite often with these concerts, I had to go by myself because nobody else was interested, or they were on a school night or something. But my father was at a meeting in New Haven. He's an attorney, and he had some sort of business there, and he said he would meet me at the concert. So we met up. And they were doing Shostakovich's Fifth. I love the work. So we're sitting there in the balcony. Now, Yale University has a magnificent concert hall, Woolsey Hall, which has one of the great symphonic organs ever built in it, the Newbury organ, I think it's called. It's really an amazing instrument. But it's an old hall. It has 3 balconies. It's not deep, but it's very high. And the chairs are those old wooden chairs that fold down, So it's liable to have certain noise issues. So we're watching Shostakovich's Fifth, and in the middle of the Largo, you know how quiet that Largo is, the central section, where you just have a little string tremolo on the violins and then a single flute going da 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 da. Da, 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 like that, right? So that's all that's happening. It's as hushed as can be, and everybody is sitting totally still, and my dad got a cough. And I don't mean a little cough. I mean a longer of a cough. Now, I am very sympathetic to coughing because I have the worst lungs in the world, as all of you may already know from when I make videos when I'm having bronchial issues, which happen fairly frequently, several times a year. And, one of my best coughs, I pointed out, is on the Ozawa Gur leader, because I was at that concert too. But this particular cough, oh my God, you hear the flute going, doo, doo, doo. Like that, right? It was really scary. So he starts coughing and he gets it under control, and then the clarinet comes in, do 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 do, like that. And then of course there are two taps of a glockenspiel, ting. Yeah. So he said to me, I got to get out of here. I got to get up. So of course he gets up, and these wonderful old 19th century chairs, with the folding seats, it goes like that, squeaks like a hinge, and he gets up, and we were all the way in the first balcony over the orchestra, in the front of the hall, the orchestra side. So he had to walk all the way to the back to get out, and he had to go upstairs, the steps in the balcony, right? There's rows of stairs. So he goes up the stairs, and it's creak, 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 creak. And he's trying not to make noise. I mean, he was doing his best. He really was. And so he starts to tiptoe toward the back of the hall, and every single step is I mean, the Largo is like what? Like 14, 13 minutes long. I mean, it must have taken him that long to get out of the place. So he gets to the back and he opens the back door. The hinges. And he goes out and the door slams. Boom, like this. It was unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I just wanted to die. I really did. But he finally got out. And of course, as soon as he got out, the finale started. Boom, 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 boom. He could have done anything he wanted and nobody would have noticed. But of course, it happened during the Largo. And that was probably the most tense and mortifying moment that I ever had in a live concert situation as a spectator. Now, I've seen other people. I mean, I've seen people misbehave. I've seen people yell and carry on. I've seen people applaud in the wrong place. I mean, all kinds of just absolutely terrible things. People who wouldn't stop talking. I mean, all kinds of obnoxious events, and I'm sure many of you have witnessed similar. But those were the three in which I was directly involved that that will live in infamy in my own memory. If you want to share one of your stories of concert mortification, please feel free to chime in. I mean, it's always fun to hear about some of the things that happen, when we were either young and obnoxious or old and obnoxious or being, hanging out with friends who were obnoxious. There's never a shortage, is there? So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for listening to these little tales of concert life. Take care.